Part 7. Landing 300 Years in Advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 61. That is to say, if we kill Xuan this time, even if Xuanhuan town knows about it, they will choose to remain silent, choose to suppress the matter temporarily, and may even try to win us over. Zhu Depeng scratched his head. When he could see Xiaohe village, after Huang Lin's repeated explanations, he finally understood the truth. It's not possible. If my father's injury can be recovered, they will definitely win us over. Huang Lin's eyes were shining. When Chen Ronghuo poisoned Xuan to death before, he was indeed a little entangled in his heart. Once Xuanhuan town knew about this, what should they do in Xiaohe village to protect themselves from the wrath of Xuanhuan town? But as soon as Chen Ronghuo said this, he instantly put down all his worries. Even with the current situation, it is possible that their Xiaohe village can take advantage of the situation to rise. Thinking of this, he suddenly turned around and said to Chen Ronghuo, "Master, thank you for everything you have done for our Xiaohe village." In his opinion, with Chen Ronghuo's strength, even if he could not use his full strength, under the circumstances at that time, as long as Chen Ronghuo showed a little bit of his skills and revealed his identity as a sorcerer, he could also scare Xuan away. But Chen Ronghuo did not do that. Instead, he chose to use his means directly and killed Xuan. This obviously did not do much good for Chen Ronghuo himself, but for their Xiaohe village, the benefits were self-evident. Chen Ronghuo looked at Huang Lin's respectful expression and nodded slightly. At this time, Zhu Depeng on the side said, "Huang Lin, we have only been out with the young master for more than a day this time, and my cultivation has broken through to the peak of the warrior realm. Your cultivation has broken through to the late warrior realm. At the same time, we also entered the Misty Valley, obtained the warlock's treasure, brought back the corpse of a second-level demon, killed Xuan, and solved the top priority for our village. With so many things, do you think other people would be scared to death or envious if they knew about it? These things." Huang Lin's face changed slightly when he heard this, and he glanced at Chen Ronghuo. Chen Ronghuo slowly said, "Other things are fine, but the matter of the warlock's treasure and the matter of entering the Misty Valley, no one of you should tell them, and you have to keep it to yourself. As for Xuan's matter, if you want to tell it, you can only tell your village chief and let him make relevant preparations in advance. Don't worry, young master, we remember it," Huang Lin said immediately. Zhu Depeng scratched his head, feeling a little disappointed. But then he thought that he probably broke through from the late stage of the warrior realm to the peak of the warrior realm, which was enough for others to envy, so he smiled again. Chen Ronghuo nodded, and then he said, "When we go back later, don't take the main road. Let's go directly to my residence along the small road." "Got it, sir." Huang Lin and Zhu Depeng nodded immediately after hearing this. This time they also realized that Chen Ronghuo's harvest this time might be really precious. However, the two of them had already gained a lot this time, and Chen Ronghuo helped them solve a huge problem in Xiaohe village, so they naturally had no greed in their hearts. At the same time, even if they were greedy, it would be useless. As Xuan said before, the warlock's things were almost useless in their hands. At most, they could only sell them for money. But if such precious things were sold for money, I'm afraid they would be killed to silence them. It was already after 9 o'clock in the evening. Because there was nothing to do, most of the villagers in Xiaohe village had turned off the lights and started to rest. In the whole village, only a few houses had lights flashing. When the three of them took a detour to the back mountain of the village and were about to walk towards Chen Ronghuo's residence, Chen Ronghuo suddenly said, "Depeng, take out your bloodline snake. I want to use it." "Okay." Zhu Depeng didn't know what Chen Ronghuo was going to do, but he quickly took out the bloodline snake from the package. After Zhu Depeng took out the bloodline snake, Chen Ronghuo immediately stepped forward and integrated the sharpness and other properties of the snake teeth that he had touched from the teeth of the bloodline snake into the snake teeth of the bloodline snake. Then he held the snake teeth of the bloodline snake with his left hand, facing his right arm, and pressed it hard. This press immediately pressed out 2 bleeding sharp snake tooth marks on it. "Young master, what are you doing?" Seeing this scene, Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen's faces changed. Chen Ronghuo shook his head, handed the blood snake to Zhu Deipen and said, "You guys keep this to yourself and don't tell anyone." "Yes." Although the two were puzzled and didn't know why Chen Ronghuo did this, they still nodded. Then, Chen Ronghuo integrated the vitality of the yellow heart cabbage into his body. It was only a moment, and part of the undigested food in his stomach was quickly digested and transformed into vitality, which flowed to his wounds, making the injuries he had just received recover quickly. In a moment, when there were signs of scarring on his wounds, but not completely scarred, he thought about it and took back the vitality of the daylily into the attribute space. "Let's keep going." After doing this, Chen Ronghuo spoke. After a while, several people returned to the village quietly and came to his courtyard without attracting anyone's attention. Meow. However, just as Chen Ronghuo opened the door of the courtyard and was about to enter the yard, a not-so-big orange-yellow fat figure suddenly jumped down from the roof of his house. This figure was incredibly fast. In just a flash, it arrived in front of Chen Ronghuo and jumped into Chen Ronghuo's arms. "Meow." The fat cat kept calling. At the same time, it rubbed Chen Ronghuo's body with its head, appearing to be unusually affectionate. Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen on the side were both startled when the fat cat suddenly rushed into Chen Ronghuo's arms, and almost drew their weapons directly. It was not until they saw that this guy was a fat cat that they breathed a sigh of relief. As for the scene where the fat cat showed incredible speed just now, it was just a trance and was ignored by the two. "What's wrong with you?" Chen Ronghuo touched the fat cat's head and rubbed him comfortably, saying, "I said I would come back today, and I would definitely come back today. I won't lie to you. It's just that something happened in the middle, which delayed some time." He had no shame for lying to himself like this. "Meow." The fat cat continued to call, as if asking him what delayed him. "I went out this time mainly to find a demon contract. Unfortunately, although I found a demon, the demon was too fierce. In the end, not only did I fail, but I also bit me. Fortunately, I found the antidote, otherwise this time." Speaking of this, he suddenly showed a bit of sighing, a bit of surviving a disaster. Xuanhuan and Zhu Deipen on the side heard Chen Ronghuo lie to a cat, and both looked strange, but they didn't dare to say much, just waited quietly. "You are so mean. Is it easy for me to set up bowls to gather votes every day? Someone actually wants to snatch it and smash it. In addition, I promise that there will be no accidents this time." The name of the next chapter is called Finally Gain Strength. Thanks to the 4-book friends Huanggu Eternal, Lincoln, Jesha Demon King and 102-117-36455 for their rewards, and thank you for your recommendation votes. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 62. While speaking, Chen Ronghuo seemed to unconsciously reach out and touch the teeth mark of the blood snake on his arm. The fat cat turned his furry head. When it saw the blood snake teeth mark on Chen Ronghuo's arm that had not yet healed, the hair on its body suddenly stood up slightly. It could feel the breath of a demon that was more powerful than itself through this tooth mark. Thinking that Chen Ronghuo actually went to find such a powerful demon and was even bitten by that demon, it trembled in its heart. Before, it thought that Chen Ronghuo, like the previous master, didn't want it anymore and abandoned itself. Now it knows that this is not the case at all. Chen Ronghuo actually went to contract other demons in order to become a demon magician. The most important thing is that this time, he almost couldn't come back. "Meow." The fat cat cried out. It kept having pictures in its mind. It thought of Chen Ronghuo's caressing these days. It thought of the delicious food Chen Ronghuo prepared for it. It thought of how Chen Ronghuo liked to talk to it no matter what. And then, it thought of the fact that it had disturbed Chen Ronghuo several times to catch the wood spirit demon butterfly not long ago. If it weren't for this, Chen Ronghuo might not have to take such a risk, and would not have to leave Xiaohe village to find other dangerous demons. Thinking of this, it suddenly felt that it seemed to be too selfish. It wanted to get benefits but didn't want to pay. Meow. It suddenly jumped out of Chen Ronghuo's arms, landed on the ground, and came to Chen Ronghuo's feet. It raised a paw, pointed in the direction of the house and cried out. Chen Ronghuo smiled, and turned to Huanglin and Zhu Deipen and said, "You are tired, so go back first. In addition, I will be in seclusion for a while. Please help me pay attention and don't let others disturb me." After Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, Huanglin and Zhu Deipen immediately said, "Don't worry, young master, with us here, no one will disturb you during your seclusion." Huanglin thought for a while and said, "Then Zhu Deipen and I will take turns to go home and visit, and always leave one person here." "That's fine." Chen Ronghuo nodded and didn't refuse. He took the two as guards and gave them a lot of benefits, so he naturally wanted to use them. Then, under the continuous urging of Fat Cat, he opened the door and walked into his own house. The blood tea tree was placed in the yard by Zhu Deipen. The body of the black snake was carried by Huanglin into another room in Chen Ronghuo's earth room. Fat Cat looked at the corpse of the black snake curiously, and when he felt a breath of fear from it, he dared not look at it anymore. "This thing is cursed, you can't touch it, understand? Once you touch it, no matter what you eat in the future, it will have no taste." Chen Ronghuo was worried that Fat Cat would get into trouble, so he warned him. Meow. Fat Cat shook his head repeatedly and agreed very obediently. After Huanglin put the corpse of the black snake away, he said goodbye to Chen Ronghuo and went home first, obviously to tell Huang Taizhong something. As for Zhu Deipen, he was guarding the gate outside Chen Ronghuo's yard. He found a stool to sit down, clenched his fists from time to time, felt the surging power in his body, and showed an excited look on his face. It seemed that he was already thinking about the shock and envy when the villagers got up tomorrow and found that he had reached the peak of the warrior realm after going out. Chen Ronghuo ignored these. At this moment, he was showing a shocked expression, staring closely at the Fat Cat in front of him, whose body suddenly became 2 or 3 times larger. Of course, this shock was mostly faked by him. You. He pointed at the Fat Cat that suddenly became huge in front of him, and stuttered, "You are a demon? How could you be a demon? How could a cook like you understand the ability of this cat?" Seeing Chen Ronghuo's shocked look, the beard on the Fat Cat's face suddenly stood up, revealing a bit of complacency. Then, in Chen Ronghuo's shocked eyes, it shrank its body rapidly, and then its figure flashed, and it came to Chen Ronghuo's arms, opened its mouth, and bit Chen Ronghuo's wrist. The severe pain came, which immediately startled Chen Ronghuo, and he almost shook his hand to throw the Fat Cat off. But at this moment, he suddenly saw that the blood bitten by the Fat Cat flew up under an inexplicable force and evolved rapidly. After a moment, the blood turned into a blood mark that was similar to the mark of the demon contract in his soul. Then the blood mark flashed and fell on the Fat Cat's forehead, as if it was absorbed by it. "This is..." Chen Ronghuo frowned. But at this moment, he suddenly felt that after the mark formed by his blood was imprinted on the Fat Cat's forehead, he and the Fat Cat seemed to have some kind of connection. With the thought, he immediately used the identification ability of the ancient book to identify the Fat Cat. Tiger-skinned chinchilla, also known as Fat Cat, has an owner. The owner is Chen Ronghuo. According to the inherited memory, it can independently perform the demon contract and establish a master-servant relationship with the host. Note, Some special demons have the ability to independently perform the demon contract. After identifying the new attributes of the fat cat, Chen Ronghuo's heart moved, immersed in his mind, and felt the demon contract mark deep in his soul. Could it be that I can now contract another demon? His eyes lit up. Originally, he could only perform the demon contract and contract a demon with the highest cultivation level reaching the late first stage. If he wanted to contract more demons, he could only wait until his strength became stronger in the future. But now, because it was Fat Cat who took the initiative to perform the demon contract, he was very likely no longer subject to this restriction. Just as he was thinking about this in his heart, he suddenly felt that a trace of mysterious power was passing to him along the special connection between Fat Cat and himself, and fell into his soul sea. After these mysterious powers fell into his soul sea, his soul immediately began to absorb these powers and quickly solidified, as if some kind of transformation was taking place. Is this the feedback that can be obtained after officially becoming a demon magician? Chen Ronghuo thought and used the identification ability of the ancient book again. But this time, he used this ability on himself. Chen Ronghuo, Demon Warlock in the early stage of transformation. Age, 23. Martial Arts Qualification, 2. Status, Soul Transformation in progress, currently in the early stage of the first stage, can reach the late stage of the first stage in 3 days. Contracted Demon, Tiger Skin Dragon Cat. Current ability, available demon contract, contract a demon with a cultivation level not exceeding the late stage of the first stage again. Innate ability 1, Left God Hand. Innate ability 2, Ordinary. Ability obtained from the Fat Cat, but you only got half of it under close contact. People who are not much stronger than you can't sense your specialness, but if you show extraordinary power, you will not be forgotten. You can choose to turn it on and off. There are always people who want to harm me and ask for recommendation votes. Thanks to the 3 book friends Dong Chenchen XIHYW197808116 for their rewards, and also thank the owners of those who cast small votes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 63. After identifying his new attributes, Chen Ronghuo's eyes lit up immediately. After signing a contract with Fat Cat, he can command Fat Cat to fight in the future. This naturally makes him excited. But compared with this, the growth of his own soul power also makes him excited. Thinking of this, he began to try to use his soul power. As soon as the thought came to him, the 2 red fire stones on the lampstand a few meters away flew up and touched each other under the control of the soul power he released. In an instant, in the dark night, a dazzling spark bloomed between the 2 red fire stones and shot onto the wick of the oil lamp. As the fire grew stronger, the dim room, which was originally illuminated by only some moonlight, suddenly lit up. 3 meters, through experiments, Chen Ronghuo found that he could now release his soul power about 3 meters away, and could use soul power to capture some small objects. If he controlled some flying needles or flying knives to fight against the enemy, most ordinary people would not be his opponents without special defense means and weapons in hand. As for formal warriors, he didn't want to think about it now. If he waits for 3 days, his soul will reach the late stage of the first stage under the nourishment of the mysterious energy fed back by the Fat Cat, and his strength will definitely be stronger. At that time, his own strength may be able to deal with an early warrior, but if he faces a mid-term warrior or a late-term warrior, he will probably still be stretched. But this is normal. After all, he is a demon magician. Controlling demons to fight is his correct way of fighting. If he rushes up and fights with others to death, what kind of demon magician is he? Chen Ronghuo feels that the profession of demon magician is really suitable for him, at least it is suitable for him in terms of safety. Moreover, he will not really be such a weak chicken all his life. Thinking of this, he suddenly turned his head and looked at the package that he had just thrown on the earth and Kong. There is still a Flame Magician certificate and a wisp of Natural Disaster Magic Flame ranked 13th on the Strange Fire list. The Natural Disaster Magic Flame Magician, just by hearing the name, is not comparable to ordinary professionals. If he works part-time as a Natural Disaster Magic Flame Sorcerer and has some achievements in martial arts, he will not be slaughtered by anyone in the future. Meow. At this time, the fat cat suddenly called out in Chen Ronghuo's arms. Chen Ronghuo did not understand cat language, but with the fat cat's call, he sensed through the demon contract between him and the fat cat that it seemed to be saying, "I will follow you in the future. You are not allowed to abandon me. You are not allowed to bully me. You must touch me often. You must cook for me and make delicious food for me. Okay, I promised you all, isn't it okay? But I really didn't expect that you are actually a demon, and you took the initiative to sign a demon contract with me. Do you want to scare me to death?" Chen Ronghuo smiled and rubbed the fat cat's head. There is a red mark on the fat cat's forehead, which is the result of the demon contract. While touching the fat cat, Chen Ronghuo used an ancient book to identify the mark. Demon contract mark. After signing the demon contract, the mark appears on the demon. Through this mark, the master can vaguely sense some of the demon's thoughts. Note, after the demon contract is signed, the master dies and the servant dies, and the servant dies and the master is injured. The fat cat squinted his eyes when Chen Ronghuo touched him like this, and Chen Ronghuo's words also made him very proud. Seeing the fat cat's appearance, Chen Ronghuo also showed a barely perceptible smile on his face. He had deceived the fat cat before, and now he would naturally continue to deceive it. But from now on, they are partners fighting together. Whether from an emotional point of view or from the characteristics of the demon contract, he will definitely treat this little guy well. Okay, don't lie in my arms, I'll get you some food first. He put the fat cat down, took the cat bowl, and then opened his package and took out a few pieces of dried meat he had brought before. Meow. Smelling the tempting smell, the fat cat immediately cried out in a hurry. Just like an ordinary orange cat. People who don't know it can't tell that it is a demon. Chen Ronghuo squatted down and touched its head, then put a few pieces of dried meat in the bowl and said, "Don't worry, no one will snatch it from you." After he settled the fat cat, he stood up and looked at the things he got from the Misty Valley. The storage ring is sealed, and it takes a long time to use soul power to impact the seal to open it. With his current strength, he doesn't know how long it will take. However, his soul level is only the initial stage of the first level at this time. It is not cost-effective to impact the seal now. It is better to wait 3 days until his soul level is improved. Glancing at the storage ring, he then glanced at the Dark Star meditation scroll and the brief history of the continent of gods, and finally set his eyes on the Fire Warlock certificate and the bottle of Natural Disaster Magic Flame. Other things can be put aside. The most urgent thing now is to use these two things and transform them into your own strength before you can rest assured. Picking up the flame certificate and the calamity flame, Chen Ronghuo glanced at the fat cat and said, "After you finish eating, go to bed. Don't disturb me, okay?" The fat cat looked up at Chen Ronghuo. When it saw the calamity flame in Chen Ronghuo's hand, it was immediately startled. Meow. Then it chewed the jerky and called out to Chen Ronghuo worriedly. It seemed to be able to feel the horror contained in the calamity flame, so it was a little worried. "Don't worry, I'll be careful." Chen Ronghuo nodded. Immediately, as soon as he had an idea, he injected a large amount of his soul power into the ancient book. With his caution, he would not easily touch the natural disaster flames. But the good thing is that as he became a formal cultivator, he has used his own power to activate ancient books and conduct deductions to ask some questions. This time, he urged the ancient book to ask how to change his profession to become a natural disaster flame warlock, whether there were any dangers involved, and how his strength would change after becoming a natural disaster magic flame warlock. A moment later, when he had consumed 2/3 of his soul power, a line of writing suddenly appeared on the ancient book. You can first use the Pyromancer certificate to obtain the Pyromancer qualification, and then use the flame contract to contract the natural disaster flames. You will not encounter any danger during this process. But the natural disaster demon flame in your hand is a wisp of natural disaster demon flame that is almost in a state of destruction. After you contract this flame, it will fall into silence. At that time, you will only have the abilities of an ordinary pyromancer. If you want to exert the true power of the natural disaster pyromancer, you must absorb a certain amount of aura from fire-attributed spiritual creatures and reactivate it. After deducing this information from ancient books, Chen Ronghuo suddenly frowned. He didn't expect that things would change like this. But after thinking about it, his expression returned to normal. Even if he couldn't display the power of the natural disaster flame warlock for the time being, it didn't matter to him. Because no matter what, his purpose of going out this time has been successfully achieved, and even far exceeded his expectations. With this thought in mind, the flame certificate scroll in the opened package flew up into the air and fell into his hands under the influence of his soul power. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 64. Chen Ronghuo took the Pyromancer scroll and the natural disaster flame. After playing with it for a while, he suddenly thought and took the extraordinary Dark Star meditation technique scroll into his hand. According to the introduction in the ancient book, there is no danger in him changing his profession to a natural disaster pyromancer. But he had just consumed a lot of soul power and was obviously not suitable for changing jobs now. The consumed soul power can be slowly replenished through rest, but after Chen Ronghuo carefully sensed it, he found that it would take 2 or 3 hours for him to recover all the soul power he had just consumed. Dark Star Meditation Technique, Extraordinary Level Meditation Technique. It can be used to purify the soul, restore soul power, speed up cultivation, and also speed up refining the power of faith. This meditation method can be obtained by dripping blood, or integrating soul power into a scroll. Can be used twice. Under Chen Ronghuo's appraisal, the new attributes of the meditation scroll appeared. It's not much different from his previous identification, but it has more methods and times of use. After pondering for a moment, Chen Ronghuo integrated a trace of his soul power into the meditation scroll. A ray of cold light bloomed from the meditation scroll and connected with Chen Ronghuo's eyebrows. Like an illusory bridge. Through this bridge, a mysterious artistic conception was conveyed to his heart, causing his mind to gradually get lost in it, as if he had fallen into some mysterious state. In such a state, a dark star that towered above him and seemed to be able to swallow everything suddenly appeared in his mind. After the dark star appeared, his soul power was swallowed into it in bits and pieces, and then spit out in an instant. Between swallowing and spitting, his soul power suddenly seemed to become a little purer. At the same time, new soul energy also surged out from the dark star to replenish the soul power he had just consumed. Is this it? Chen Ronghuo was a little surprised. He didn't expect that he could master this meditation technique so easily. But this time, although he quickly mastered this meditation technique with the help of the scroll, but he also mastered the method in the process of practicing this meditation technique. So now, even if he destroys the dark star in his soul sea, he can still condense the dark star out again with his own strength. At the same time, after mastering this secret, he also knew that it was actually a growth-oriented meditation technique. After successfully practicing this meditation technique, it will grow with him, and as his cultivation level improves, his abilities will become stronger and stronger. With these thoughts in mind, he turned to look at the fat cat that glanced at him from time to time while eating dried meat. He shook his head and smiled, put his slippers on the earthen Kong, sat down cross-legged, and began to meditate with his eyes closed to accelerate the recovery of soul power. After only half an hour passed, his eyes opened and his energy blossomed, revealing a radiant look. At this time, he had surprisingly recovered all the soul power he had consumed before. At the same time, under the influence of dark star meditation, his soul power also became purer. The soul power is pure and the power will become greater. After doing this, he held the pyromancer's certificate in front of him and incorporated a trace of soul power into it. Buzz! The warlock's certificate was shocked, and suddenly turned into a fiery red mark, which rushed from the center of his eyebrows into the sea of his soul. Just like the previous demonic warlock's mark, it was imprinted on the origin of his soul. This is the transformation of the soul's origin. When he obtained the demonic warlock before, he was mentally depressed for a long time. But this time, because he was already an official warlock, his soul origin was much stronger under the nourishment of the mysterious energy fed back by Fat Cat. He only felt a little uncomfortable and returned to normal. After obtaining the pyromancer qualification, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed and he looked at the natural disaster flames in the transparent bottle again. Secret strange fire bottle, it can be used to store most strange fires, but it cannot hinder the power of the soul. Whoosh! The next moment, after Chen Ronghuo identified the strange fire bottle containing the natural disaster flame, he used his soul power to activate the fiery red mark in the origin of his soul, causing it to emit a ray of red light towards the strange fire bottle. The natural disaster flame rushed over. Next, it's time to use the flame contract and contract the natural disaster flame. Chen Ronghuo was excited. However, he underestimated the difficulty of contracting the natural disaster demonic flame. Time passed quickly during the process of his contract with the natural disaster demonic flame, not 1 minute and 1 second, but several hours passed. Huang Tishan's family. Huang Lin, why are you back? Where is Mr. Chen? Huang Lin's sudden return surprised Huang Tai, who was worried about Zhu Qiang's arrival during the day. Dad, let me tell you something good, Huang Lin said with a smile on his dark face. This time I went out with the young master and broke through to the late stage of the warrior realm. Have you broken through to the late warrior realm? Huang Tai's Hung was startled. He knew exactly what his son's qualifications were. Huang Lin is not weak in the village, but he is definitely not strong either. In particular, Huang Lin's qualifications were extremely ordinary. If nothing unexpected happened, Huang Lin would never be able to break through and become an earth warrior in his lifetime. The reason why Huang Lin was able to break through to the middle stage of the warrior realm at the age of 28 was all because his usual training time was more than twice that of others. But he knew that even if Huang Lin continued like this, he would only be able to break through to the late stage of the warrior realm when he was 35 or 36 years old at most. What happened? Tell me. Huang Tai's Hung asked impatiently. At this time, Huang Xiaoshan, who had already fallen asleep, also raised his head and looked at Huang Lin. It was the young master, Huang Lin said with reverence on his face. It was the young master who gave me and Zhu Deipen a huge opportunity. I can't tell you what happened specifically, but this time, not only did I break through to the late stage of the warrior realm, but Zhu Deipen also broke through to the peak of the warrior realm. And the two of us are now officially accepted as guards by the young master. Guard. Huang Tai's Hung was stunned. Then he quickly said, this is really a great thing. Young Master Chen's methods are mysterious. He pulled you back from the hands of the god of death before, and now he is your guard. You must take good care of young Master Chen in the future, and never let him down. There is no ungrateful person in our Huang family. Huang Lin nodded, Dad, don't worry, I know what to do. Then he looked at Huang Xiaoshan, who was looking at him with wide eyes, glared at him unhappily, and stretched out his hand to pull Huang Tai's Hung, and said, in addition, I have another important thing to say, Dad, come out with me first. This matter is related to the fate of our Xiahe village, you must prepare in advance. I have a fairy bowl, who has a vote to vote. Thanks to Xioxia's killer for the reward. I got a lot of things this time, and I didn't consider using a lot of space to describe it when I got it. It was a failure. The rest was as abbreviated as possible, or written in the appropriate plot. Some settings are not perfect, but they will be set up later. Don't take them all out at once, otherwise it will look too boring. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 65. What do you want to say? Following Huang Lin outside the house, Huang Taizheng couldn't help but ask, wondering what Huang Lin wanted to say, why he still had to carry Huang Xiaoshan on his back. Huang Lin's ears twitched, and after feeling nothing unusual, he spoke, "This time we went out, not only did we get great benefits, but we also cooperated with the young master to kill Xuan, one of the 3 earth warriors in Lushwiven town." "What did you say?" Huang Tishan's heart skipped a beat, and his face suddenly turned pale. In his eyes, Greenwater Bay Town was like the sky. If they offend Lushwiven town, their entire Xiahe village will suffer. "Dad, listen to me first." After Huang Lin signaled Huang Taizheng to keep his voice down, he began to tell what happened, and the last words Chen Ronghuo said. "You mean, young master can restore my hidden wounds?" After listening to Huang Lin's story, Huang Tishan's eyes immediately lit up. His injuries were different from Huang Lin's previous injuries. Although Huang Lin's previous injuries were serious, they were all traumatic injuries. His injuries were internal injuries, injuries to his internal organs. Such an injury was extremely difficult to treat, and he had long been in despair, so after hearing Huang Lin's words this time, he suddenly became excited. The Earth Warrior has strong energy and blood and can live for 150 years. However, due to serious injuries to his body, he began to feel powerless in the past 2 years. Although he can still exert his strength as an Earth Warrior now, once he breaks out with all his strength, he may die within a few days. Huang Lin nodded and said, "Young master didn't say it clearly, but I think that with the young master's methods, there will probably be no problem." Earth Warrior. Huang Taizheng took a deep breath and thought of Huang Lin's words before. Once he recovers from his injuries and can exert his power as an Earth Warrior without any obstacles, then under the current situation, Xiahe village may really be able to rise. Pity. Just thinking of this, he suddenly sighed again. It's a pity that Mr. Chen is not a nobleman. Otherwise, it would be a great thing for us to join him in Xiahe village and all become his subjects. When Huang Lin heard Huang Tishan's words, his eyes suddenly flashed. But then, the color in his eyes dimmed again. If you want to become a noble, you must first have a noble reward scroll given by the gods. There must be idle noble reward scrolls on Beiwu Island, but most of these things are in the hands of the great lords, and they cannot easily obtain them. And he didn't know if Chen Ronghuo had any intention of becoming a lord in their remote land of Xiahe village. It's a little late now. You go back and replace Zhu Deipen first, and let him go home and take a look. After Huang Taizheng pondered for a moment, he said, "Then when Mr. Chen comes out of seclusion, I will rush over as soon as possible." "That's fine." Huang Lin nodded. The next morning, after being replaced by Huang Lin, Zhu Deipen returned home and slept comfortably. He got up early and walked slowly in the village towards Chen Ronghuo's courtyard. And he also deliberately took a detour. "Zhu Deipen, you actually get up so early?" Li Haishui, who was used to getting up early to practice martial arts in front of his house, was slightly surprised when he saw Zhu Deipen walking slowly, but then he seemed to have thought of something and asked, "But when did you come back, Chen? Where is the young master?" "I came back last night." Seeing Li Haishui, Zhu Deipen's eyes lit up, "but the young master said that he will be in seclusion these days, and the lectures will have to wait for a while." I got up so early today just to replace Xuanhuan and help the young master guard the gate. Gatekeeper. Li Haishui was a little surprised. Yes, I have been accepted as a guard by the young master. Of course, not only me, Xuanhuan is also protected by the young master's guards. Zhu Deipen said with a smile on his face. This was a routine that he came up with after thinking about it all night, which would not appear to be complacent, but would also shock and envy the people in the same village. Have you been accepted as a bodyguard by Mr. Chen? Li Haishui was a little surprised, but not too surprised. When he helped Chen Ronghuo fix the blackboard before, he already knew that Chen Ronghuo would probably accept Zhu Deipen as his bodyguard. But what he didn't expect was that Chen Ronghuo would accept Zhu Deipen as his bodyguard so quickly. That's not all, even though he was being serious, at this moment, Zhu Deipen couldn't help but show a bit of pride on his face. This time when I went out with the young master, my cultivation level has broken through from the late warrior realm to the late warrior realm. Reached the peak of the warrior realm. And Xuanlin's cultivation also broke through from the middle stage of the warrior realm to the late stage. As soon as these words came out, Li Haishui, who was already feeling a little stirred in his heart, suddenly froze on the spot. Zhu Deipen broke through to the peak of the warrior realm, and Xuanlin broke through to the late stage of the warrior realm. How long had it been? How is this possible? He also wants to be Chen Ronghuo's bodyguard. He wanted to become Chen Ronghuo's bodyguard because he wanted to see if Chen Ronghuo could help him improve his warrior qualifications in the future. But he knew clearly in his heart that this was just a glimmer of hope. Even if Chen Ronghuo could really help him improve his qualifications as a warrior, he would never help him improve as soon as he took refuge. But now, Zhu Deipen and Xuanlin just went out with Chen Ronghuo, and their cultivation levels improved by a small level, which shocked him. If one's cultivation level is raised by one level, it means that there will be more time for him to be promoted to the Earth Warrior in the future. Indirectly speaking, this can also be regarded as improving the qualifications of a warrior. I won't talk to you anymore. I have to replace Xuanlin quickly. At this time, after telling the story that he had been holding back for so long, Zhu Deipen, who could no longer suppress the smile on his face, immediately sped up and rushed to Chen Ronghuo's courtyard. This bastard! Seeing Zhu Deipen leaving quickly, Li Haishui's face immediately turned black. At this time, he didn't know that Zhu Deipen came here this time just to show off to him. But he had to admit that he was jealous. Time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye, it was the evening of the third day when Chen Ronghuo returned to Xiahe village. At this time, the sun had completely set, and looking to the west, only a hint of red light could be seen. Young master has been in seclusion for 3 days. Does a sorcerer have to be in seclusion for so long every time? Zhu Deipen and Xuanlin were sitting at the door of Chen Ronghuo's courtyard. Li Haishui also came over shamelessly. The three of them looked into Chen Ronghuo's earthen house from time to time, wondering what Chen Ronghuo was doing in this retreat. He had spent so much time and had not come out yet. Collect. At the same time, Chen Ronghuo, who had been sitting cross-legged on the earthen kong for 3 days, and only let the fat cat feed him a few pieces of dried meat, looked at the natural disaster magic flame in the different fire bottle, and suddenly let out a low shout in his heart. Continue to set up the fairy bowl, but by the way, aren't you afraid that I will take away your little dicks if you pee in it? Thanks to Fu Empire for the reward of 2,500 coins, book friend 201807180541021996 for the reward of 1,000 coins, and the 3 book friends Huanggu Eternal, 7LX, and 2016122914310960 for the reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 66. Buzz. The fire bottle shook, the cork flew up, and then the natural disaster flame flew out, drawing a thin black-red fire line in the air, and sank into Chen Ronghuo's forehead. Chen Ronghuo felt a pain in his forehead, and then he saw through his consciousness that there was a black-red flame above his soul sea. The flame burned fiercely, and in a flash it turned into an ocean. A sea of flame clouds that looked like a fire cloud. However, when this black-red sea of flame clouds was formed, its black color suddenly faded and shrank to the core, making the surrounding flames look like only red. At the same time, Chen Ronghuo's soul also shook, as if it had received some kind of feedback, and it instantly became much stronger. The dark star above the soul sea also made his soul power much purer under the swallowing. Is it done? Chen Ronghuo opened his eyes and his heart moved. Then he immediately used the power of the ancient book and cast the appraisal technique on himself again. However, this time, when he used the ancient book's identification technique, he tried to input a trace of soul power into it, and tried to issue a command to the ancient book. Quantify my power level in a way that I can understand. This was just an attempt of his, and he didn't know if it would be useful. It would be best if it was useful, but even if it was useless, it would not be a loss for him. As his command was issued, lines of handwriting suddenly began to appear on the ancient book. Chen Ronghuo. Occupation 1, Demon Magician, late first stage. Soul Power, LV1, Peak. Ability, Soul Control LV1, Elementary. Note, soul power belongs to the power level, and each level of power is divided into 4 levels: elementary, medium, advanced, and peak. Ability levels are also divided into these 4 levels. Contracted Demon, Fat Tiger Skin Chinchilla, late first stage. Note, when the host becomes a Calamity Flame Warlock, the level of soul power is increased under the baptism of the power of Calamity Flame feedback. The Fat Tiger Skin Chinchilla who signs a demon contract with the host will also make rapid progress under the feedback of the host and quickly reach the peak of the first stage in a short period of time. After the Fat Tiger Skin Chinchilla reaches the peak of the first stage, the host's Demon Magician level will also be promoted to the peak of the first stage. That is, the host's Demon Magician level is related to the host's soul power level and the level of the contracted demon. The lowest of the two is the host's Demon Magician level. Profession 2, Calamity Flame Warlock, peak first stage. Flame Power, LV1, peak. Ability, Flame Control LV1, elementary. Special ability, Flame Affinity add 1. Due to the special effect of Calamity Flame, the host's flame affinity is permanently 1 level higher than the flame power level. The host's flame affinity is currently LV2, elementary. The higher the flame affinity, the faster the host can practice flame secrets and control flames. The level of the Calamity Flame Warlock is related to the soul level and the flame power level. The lowest of the two is the Calamity Flame Warlock level. Because the Calamity Flame is silent, the host now only has the ability to control ordinary flame warlocks. First level peak. When Chen Ronghuo saw the appraisal results of the ancient book, his eyes lit up. He didn't expect that after he contracted the Calamity Flame could actually give him some power back, allowing his soul level to reach the first level peak. At the same time, his flame power level was also the first level peak at the beginning. In this way, it is equivalent to that he is now a first level peak flame warlock. In terms of power level, he is already comparable to Ho San and Zhu Daipen. In addition, after his soul power level is increased, Fat Cat can also get his feedback, and it won't be long before he will be promoted to a first level peak demon. By then, if he could improve the levels of his 2 abilities, Soul Control and Fire Control, through practice, he would really have considerable combat power. Meow. At this time, the fat cat, who had been with him in the house for several days and nights, suddenly looked up at him. The fat cat was a little surprised. He didn't know why Chen Ronghuo, who needed him to feed back his strength not long ago, began to feed back his strength. But it feels really good to improve your strength even when sleeping, it thought beautifully. You fat lazy cat. Chen Ronghuo rubbed the fat cat's head. This guy is getting fatter and fatter. Then he suddenly remembered that when he just identified it, the ancient book actually changed the name of the fat cat to Tigerskin Fat Dragon Cat. He didn't know if it was related to the fact that he often thought that this guy was too fat. After being rubbed by Chen Ronghuo, the fat cat immediately narrowed his eyes, stretched his neck, and pressed his neck against the Kong, revealing a comfortable and intoxicated expression. Looking at the fat cat's appearance, Chen Ronghuo shook his head. Because his two abilities are too weak, he may not be a match for Ho San and Zhu Deipen. But if he can raise his soul control and flame control to the peak, his strength should be considerable. If he can raise these two abilities to the peak and revive the natural disaster flame, then perhaps, even if he is not yet at the second level, he may be able to fight against ordinary second-level Earth warriors. Thinking about this, he raised his hand, and under the pull of the soul power, the brief history of the world of gods not far away fell into his hands. At this time, the sun had completely set. At the gate of Chen Ronghuo's courtyard, Zhu Deipen glanced at Li Haishui, who had been here with him and Huang Lin for a long time, and laughed. I say, Li Hizhe, it's already this time, why don't you go home? Li Haishui looked at the completely dark sky and sighed. He knew that the possibility of Chen Ronghuo coming out of retreat at this time was almost zero. He shook his head, stood up and said, in this case, I will go back first. Hurry up. Zhu Deipen waved his hand and smiled, but remember, if you want to come again tomorrow, it's best to bring a few dishes. In this way, maybe I can say a few good words for you in front of the young master in the future. Hearing Zhu Deipen's words, Huang Lin shook his head. Li Haishui's face was also dark. He ignored Zhu Deipen, who was too proud of himself, and turned to walk into the darkness. Go to hell. Just a few minutes after Li Haishui left, Huang Lin and Zhu Deipen suddenly heard Li Haishui's shout. Bang, bang, bang. Then, there was a fierce fighting sound. Hearing the noise, the two stood up immediately. But the two looked back at Chen Ronghuo's still calm courtyard. After hesitating for a moment, even though they were anxious, they didn't rush over. Bang, bang. Soon after, all the houses in the village lit up the lights, accompanied by more fierce fighting sounds and the sound of crying. A dark cloud covered the moon, and vaguely, the whole village was shrouded in an indescribable silence. Huang Lin, Zhu Deipen, hasn't the young master come out yet? A few minutes later, Li Haishui, who had just left, and many people in the village came over with red torches in hand. Li Hizhe, what happened? Zhu Deipen, who was joking with Li Haishui before, asked immediately when he saw Li Haishui return. At this time, one of Li Haishui's arms was drooping, and blood was seeping out of his clothes, which was obviously broken. But this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the two people next to Li Haishui are all white-haired and haggard. But when he looked carefully, the two people looked like Li Haishui's wife and Li Haishui's 10-year-old son. I glued the broken porcelain bowl together. Please don't be polite and throw your recommendation votes in. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 67. It's the knocker from Shanghe village who came to our village. Zhao Tian's family all suffered a disaster. I returned in time, but my wife and children were still harmed by that ghost and had a lot of life sucked away from them. I don't know how long they can live. Zhu Deipen, hasn't Mr. Chen come out yet? I want you to see if my wife and children can be saved. Li Haishui said in a deep voice. As he spoke, blood dropped from his drooped arms to the ground. Beside him, his gray-haired wife and his son Li Ming both cried softly. Seeing several people like this, Zhu Deipen's face turned extremely ugly. Although he liked to joke with Li Haishui, as the only two late-stage warriors in the entire village, he had the best relationship with Li Haishui. Especially that boy Li Ming, whom he teased a lot on weekdays, and had an excellent relationship with him. But at this moment, when he saw such an older child with white hair, haggard appearance, and staggering gait, he suddenly became worried. Only Chen Ronghuo made it clear during the retreat that this retreat could not be disturbed. He took a deep breath. With a guilty look on his face, he said, "It's not that I won't help you, it's just..." Halfway through his words, he could no longer say the rest. Huanglin on the side also looked ugly. This matter involved human lives, and it was also related to Li Haishui's family, and he felt equally uncomfortable. But he thought more than Zhu Daipen. At this time, Chen Ronghuo is in retreat. If they disturb Chen Ronghuo and cause something to happen to Chen Ronghuo in retreat, will Chen Ronghuo implicate the entire Xiaohe village? That's right. Chen Ronghuo had always been extremely kind in Xiaohe village, but from the moment Chen Ronghuo poisoned Xuan, he knew that Chen Ronghuo was definitely a decisive person. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Li Haishui stood in front of the two of them, blood seeping through his clothes and falling to the ground drop by drop. His uninjured hand was clenched into a fist. He resents it. Resenting that I have no strength. Resenting myself for not being able to do anything about what happened to me. Crunch. At this moment, the door of Chen Ronghuo's room was pushed open. Chen Ronghuo walked out quickly and said in a deep voice, "What happened?" In fact, he already knew what happened. In fact, when Li Haishui came home and let out that roar, he had already heard the movement and the sounds of fighting. It's just that what he wanted to do at that time was not to go out, but to listen to the noise again. Let's see if Xiaohe village can solve it. If Xiaohe village couldn't solve the problem, he planned to send Huanglin and Zhu Daipen there, then turn around and run away. It's a bit despicable to do this, but he has only been in this world for more than 10 days, and his own strength is limited. He can't deal with the enemy even if there are earth warriors in Xiaohe village. If he doesn't leave, he will be completely stupid. He feels that go is the kingly way. And now, he doesn't have such deep feelings for Xiaohe village. So, it wasn't until Li Haishui and his party came over and said that the enemy was the knocker, and that the knocker had probably been driven away, that he opened the door and walked out on the pretext that the retreat had just ended. Master. Seeing Chen Ronghuo, Li Haishui's eyes immediately lit up, and he excitedly greeted him, while telling what happened just now again. This time, neither Huanglin nor Zhu Daipen stopped him. Your injury. Chen Ronghuo frowned and glanced at Li Haishui, then turned his attention to Li Haishui's wife and son. Su Xinlin, ordinary human beings. Age 32. A lot of lifespan was sucked away by ghosts, and there were 2 hours of lifespan left. Li Ming, junior warrior apprentice. Age 10 years old. Status, most of the lifespan has been sucked away by ghosts, and there are 2.5 hours left. After using ancient books to assess the status of the two of them, Chen Ronghuo's pupils suddenly shrank. At this time, even Li Ming, who has the most life left, can only live for 2.5 hours, which is also a tricky thing for him at this time. Sir, I don't know. Seeing Chen Ronghuo looking towards his wife and son, Li Haishui couldn't help but ask. Chen Ronghuo shook his head and did not answer, but asked, "Where is the knocker?" Li Haishui's face turned pale, but he still replied, "Ho-san has caught up with them, but we don't know where they are now." Chen Ronghuo pondered for a moment and then said, "If I can capture that knocker alive, I may have a way to get back the longevity it sucked from your wife and son. If not..." Young master, as Chen Ronghuo was about to speak, Li Haishui gritted his teeth and said, "I'm going to find that damn thing right now." Master, you don't know that I... At the same time, Zhu Daipen also showed an inquiring look to Chen Ronghuo. What just happened made him feel guilty. Now that Chen Ronghuo was out of isolation, he would naturally go to help if he could. Chen Ronghuo waved his hand and said to Li Haishui, "Listen to me first. If you can't capture that knocker, I have a way to save your wife and son. But this method will hurt you a lot. I need to use your longevity to make up for theirs, so if you agree, just stay here for now." Because refining the Calamity Flame does not require too much soul power and can be slightly distracted, Chen Ronghuo not only refined the Calamity Flame during the 3 days of retreat, but also consumed a lot of soul power every day to inquire about some things with ancient books. Among these things, the first thing he inquired about was the ability of his left hand. Through the inquiry, he knew that if he was given enough time, he could turn a living person into ashes, but he could never kill a person at once. Because his left hand ability can only extract one attribute from a thing at most at a time. And any attribute of any life is more than one. Nor will it die directly because of the lack of one. Knowing this, he can have a bottom line in his heart, and no longer worry about accidentally touching someone with his left hand and directly touching that person to death. At the same time, he can also use this to transfer some of Li Haishui's lifespan to his wife and son. Hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Li Haishui immediately showed an extremely excited look. Then he knelt down in front of Chen Ronghuo with a plop, "Master, thank you, Master." After he finished speaking, he was already sobbing. Seeing that Li Haishui did not hesitate when he heard that he might transfer his lifespan to his wife and son, Chen Ronghuo nodded slightly. Then he thought about it, and without anyone knowing, he injected 1/3 of his soul power into the ancient book. "Huanglin, Zhu Deipan." Suddenly, Chen Ronghuo pointed in a direction and said, "You two go in this direction and stop in front of the river near your village. Wait a while, the knocking ghost will arrive there. You cooperate with Ho-san and try to capture it alive. It's time to ask for votes again. Can the person who sucked my iron bowl away with the 9-dragon magnet before return the bowl to me? Thanks to Mu Sungzian for the 500 coin reward. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 68. Sir, that ghost just ran to the southwest. After Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, Li Haishui's expression changed slightly. He knew that he should not refute Chen Ronghuo. But the direction Chen Ronghuo pointed was wrong. It can even be said to be the complete opposite. Upon hearing this, Huanglin and Zhu Deipan both looked at Chen Ronghuo. Chen Ronghuo waved his hand and said, "Do as I say." He judged the direction of the ghost's escape based on ancient books. However, he did not use the ancient book's ability to predict. The ability to predict is too expensive and cannot be used by him now. He only made this judgment using the ability of ancient books to figure out where the ghost was now and in which direction it was running. "Don't worry, sir, we will definitely capture that ghost alive." After hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, the two of them immediately took the order and rushed in the direction he pointed. Seeing this scene, Li Haishui sighed secretly and could only pray in his heart that the ghost really turned around and ran in another direction after leaving the village as Chen Ronghuo said. Otherwise, this time he would have to use his own longevity to make up for the longevity of his wife and son. It's a pity. At the same time, Chen Ronghuo shook his head secretly. Such a ghost whose strength is around the peak of the first level is actually very suitable for him to exercise his actual combat ability. It's just that the current occasion is not suitable. He must maintain an enigmatic image in front of everyone in Ziahe village. Therefore, the actual combat matters can only wait until later. Tick-tock, tick-tock. While waiting, blood was still dripping from Li Haishui's arm, which was kneeling on the ground. His wife had stopped crying, but young Li Ming was still sobbing. In the crowd, Huang Xiaoshan, who had previously said that he wanted the knocker to find him, turned pale when he saw this terrifying scene. After Huanglin and Zhu Deipan left, Chen Ronghuo turned around, glanced at Li Ming, put his hand on his head and comforted him, Okay, it's all over. The teacher is here, you will be fine. After Li Ming stopped crying, he then turned his eyes to Li Haishui and said, you can't continue like this. I'll help you treat your injuries first. At the same time, he looked up at Huang Taizheng and said, village chief, as before, prepare more food. While he was speaking, he had already arrived in front of Li Haishui, and pressed his left hand on Li Haishui, integrating the attributes of the 5 yellow cabbages into it. Thank you, sir. Li Haishui didn't know how to express his gratitude, so he just kept saying thank you and kowtowed to Chen Ronghuo. Okay, you get up first. Chen Ronghuo shook his head. If he couldn't capture the ghost, even if he could take out Li Haishui's life essence and transfer it to his wife and son, he probably wouldn't be able to transfer too much. After all, there are limits to the various attributes that each person can incorporate. Only by capturing the ghost and finding out the attributes that originally belonged to Li Haishui's wife and son could it be possible to perfectly integrate it into their bodies. With these thoughts in mind, Chen Ronghuo glanced at Huang Taizheng, who had already sent people to get food. It has now been 3 days since he returned to Xiaohe village from the Misty Valley. In the past 3 days, Xiaohe village did not turn over 100,000 copper coins as Zhu Qian, the pyromancer of Lushwiven town, said, and also sent 10 warriors, including Ho San, to Lushwiven town. And after so long, Lushwiven town may have dealt with Su An's unexpected death and will soon turn its attention to Xiaohe village. So next, he must recover from Huang Tishan's hidden injuries as soon as possible. Huang Taizheng, elementary earth warrior. There were hidden injuries to his internal organs, and there was a mixture of foreign poisons entangled in his abdomen. He had 1 year left to live. Using the identification technique of ancient books, more accurate identification results emerged. He had used ancient books to identify Huang Taizheng before, but that time it only showed roughly that Huang Taizheng had hidden injuries on his body, and nothing too precise was revealed. Inner abdominal injury? Mixed poison of different species? Chen Ronghuo frowned slightly and said to Huang Taizheng, village chief Huang, please come here too. This time, I can take a look at the hidden injuries on your body. Huang Taizheng was startled. After reacting quickly, he quickly walked up to Chen Ronghuo and said, Sir, can my injury really be cured? We'll talk about the injury later. Chen Ronghuo asked, there is a kind of poison entangled in your body, did you know? Huang Taizheng was startled, then his face changed slightly and he said, my injury was caused by a sneak attack by a man in black shortly after I broke through and became an earth warrior 10 years ago. The palm technique used by the man in black is a poisonous palm. It was only after he hit me on the chest that I became like this. Chen Ronghuo thought for a while and said, what happened next? Didn't the man in black kill you? It's been so long, and you still don't know who he is. At that time, I also hit him with a palm and injured him. In addition, other people in the village arrived in time, and the man retreated directly. Huang Tai replied, it's just that after so many years, I have never been. Do you know who that person is and why he attacked me? Chen Ronghuo frowned. Forget it, don't tell me this in advance. He shook his head and said, I'll try to remove the toxins from your body first. He has accepted Huang Lin as his bodyguard and Huang Xiaoshan as his apprentice. Therefore, it was only natural to help Huang Taizheng heal his injuries. There is no need to wait for Huang Taizheng to speak, and say something like he would sell his life to him in the future, before helping him. Chen Ronghuo put his left hand on Huang Taizheng and began to try to feel out his attributes. It is much more difficult to feel out the attributes of a conscious life, and it takes a long time. It is naturally awkward to put your hand on an old man and touch him. In order to avoid embarrassment, Chen Ronghuo closed his eyes after putting his left hand on Huang Taizheng, as if he was secretly performing some tricks. Huang Taizheng was nervous and didn't care about these. Others in the field were a little excited when they saw that Chen Ronghuo was actually planning to help Huang Taizheng heal his wounds. Once Huang Tishan's injuries recovered and he could exert the strength of a warrior of the earth, they would not be as cowardly as they are now in Xiaohe village. Just like this time, if Huang Tishan's strength was at its peak, the ghost might be noticed by Huang Taizheng as soon as he came in, and there would be no time to do evil. Thinking of this, everyone released a lot of psychological pressure caused by the death of people in the village. Li Haishui's wife and son also secretly breathed a sigh of relief after seeing that Chen Ronghuo didn't seem to take their condition too seriously. Chen Ronghuo didn't take it seriously, which meant that their injuries were probably not too serious. But they didn't know that the remaining lifespan of the two of them was only more than 2 hours at most. Heterogeneous mixed poison add 1. After a while, Chen Ronghuo had an idea and suddenly took out a mixed poison attribute from Huang Tishan's body. As for the other attributes he took out from Huang Tishan's body, he returned them immediately without attracting Huang Tishan's attention. However, while doing this, he suddenly found a great way to control his subordinates. That is, he can take out the attributes of his subordinates one by one and return them one by one. In this way, if they betray, he only needs to use his left hand to take back all those attributes and beat them to ashes. Master, we have accomplished our mission and captured this evil thing. 3 words for recommendation. Thanks again to Mu Sungzian for the 1000 coin reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 69. Chen Ronghuo was a little tired. He thought very well before, thinking that he would find out Huang Tishan's attributes one by one and return them one by one. If Huang Taizheng dared to be dishonest in the future, he would slap the little old man to dust. But he touched Huang Tishan's body for more than 20 minutes, and only found 3 attributes in total. It also has an attribute of old skin, an attribute of gray hair, and the last attribute is a mixed poison add 1. He estimated that the reason why he was able to find out that one of the 3 attributes was a heterogeneous mixed poison was related to the fact that this attribute itself did not belong to Huang Taizheng. Otherwise, with Huang Tishan's strength as an earth warrior, it would definitely not be an easy task for him to extract a large number of attributes from him. Just like Xuan before. Even if Xuan was dead and unconscious, it still took him 7 or 8 minutes to find out all its attributes. Chen Ronghuo shook his head a little, knowing that it would definitely take him a long time to find out all the heterogeneous mixed poison attributes in Huang Tishan's body. At this moment, a shout came from the distance, causing everyone in the village to look up. Then everyone saw Ho-san, Huanglin, and Zhu Deipen twisting soft branches into ropes, tying up a black figure, dragging it on the ground and running back quickly. That black shadow was obviously the ghost that wreaked havoc in the village just now. Really caught. Seeing this scene, the villagers were excited. When Li Haishui said before that the ghost did not escape in the direction pointed by Chen Ronghuo, everyone was still unsure. It wasn't until this moment, when Zhu Deipen and others caught the ghost thing 20 minutes after leaving, that they truly believed Chen Ronghuo's words. But at the same time, they were also curious. I don't know what Chen Ronghuo used to determine the direction in which the ghost escaped. Of course, when curious, Chen Ronghuo's mystery became more deeply rooted in people's hearts. Young master, you are lucky to have lived up to your destiny. After a while, Zhu Deipen and others came to Chen Ronghuo. Zhu Deipen pulled hard, and the rope made of soft branches brought the black ghost with it and fell in front of Chen Ronghuo with a thud. Is this, the head of Shanghe village? Suddenly, before Chen Ronghuo could use ancient books to identify the ghost, Huang Taizheng beside him, after taking a closer look at the ghost that fell in front of him, suddenly let out an exclamation, with a look of surprise and uncertainty on his face. Chief of Shanghe Village. Village chief, what's going on? Everyone was startled when they heard this, and they all asked quickly. The mayor of Shanghe Village is obviously still alive and well. Not their current village chief, this person is the village chief of their Shanghe Village 20 years ago. At this time, an old man in the village answered, the original village chief of Shanghe Village was named Wu Yukai. Some of you may not know that 20 years ago, their whole family died tragically, except for him, who is missing. I just don't know how he became like this and suddenly appeared a year ago, killing people everywhere. Chen Ronghuo frowned when he heard this. Wrong. Suddenly, Huang Tishan's old big hand suddenly tightened, and then he quickly squatted down, reached his hand in front of the ghost on the ground, and pulled hard, and actually tore off the dark black clothes on his chest that were stained with a strong ghost aura. Come on. After tearing off this layer of clothing, everyone immediately saw that there was a vague palm print on the ghost's chest. It's him again. A look of extreme resentment suddenly appeared on Huang Tishan's face, and he turned to Chen Ronghuo and said, Sir, the palm print on Wu Yukai's body is almost exactly the same as the palm print left on me by the man who attacked me 10 years ago. Identical palm prints? Chen Ronghuo had an idea. At the same time, he used the identification ability of the ancient book to face the ghost in front of him. Knocker. Name, Wu Yukai. 20 years ago, Wu Yukai accidentally entered a ghost cave in the water and obtained a 5th level ghost charm and a noble reward scroll. However, the secret was not kept secret, and not long after, a man in black knocked on the door and entered the house at night, and brutally murdered the entire family. In the end, he himself had to use the ghost charm to transform himself into a ghost, which temporarily increased his strength and escaped from the hands of the man in black. The 5th level ghost communication talisman is so powerful that when used, it will not only transform Wu Yukai's body into a ghost body, but also transform his clothes and everything else into ghost objects. Only the noble reward scrolls were not transformed into ghosts because they were given by the gods and carried divine power. But it was also sealed by a large amount of ghost energy. After identifying the information about the ghost in front of him, Chen Ronghuo's expression suddenly changed. He never thought that he would actually get the information about the noble reward scroll from this ghost. He had long made up his mind to become a lord in the world of the gods. Especially after he got the book A Brief History of the World of Gods from the Misty Valley, his idea became even more unbreakable. By reading the brief history of this world, he knew that in the world of gods, in addition to the ancient gods who were born together with the world of gods, the strange gods who came to the world of gods from outside the sky, and the early gods who grew up at the beginning of the birth of the world of gods. Gods, most of the new gods that were born later, became gods through refining the power of faith. At the same time, those ancient gods, alien gods, and the first gods have been tirelessly seeking the power of faith in the past countless years. Even the gods are seeking the power of faith, so why would he not want it? For him, there is only one way to get the power of faith now, that is to become a noble lord. In fact, during the past few days of retreat, he did not think about using ancient books to calculate how to get the noble reward scroll. But after trying, he gave up temporarily. The soul power required to calculate the noble reward scroll is too much. Even if he consumed all his soul power that reached the peak of the first level, it was far from enough. After several experiments, he realized that the greater the cause and effect of the things he asked the ancient book, the more power he consumed. The noble reward scroll is obviously such a thing whose cause and effect is beyond his ability. He had such a great harvest in the Misty Valley before, not only because of the ability of the ancient book, but also because he was careful enough. Otherwise, he might have left the cave after getting the blood camellia. The reason why the ancient book only calculated the blood camellia and did not calculate the inheritance of the black snake was because the inheritance of the black snake was too complicated. He only used 20 energy points and could not calculate it at all. So before that, he had actually made plans to continue to use the ancient book to accumulate energy, and then calculate the noble reward scroll after the ancient book accumulated enough energy. But he did not expect. After searching everywhere, it was easy to find. Zhu Daipen, take this ghost thing to my room. Are you not satisfied with 3 chapters a day during the new book period? MMMP, hurry up and I will be on the shelves before I can get a few recommendations. Thanks to Mou Shi for the 700 coins reward, and also thanks to Fen Yupiao Lu for the reward. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chao Ji Depeng. Chapter 70. Okay. Zhu Daipen agreed, then pulled the rope in his hand and dragged the bound knocker into Chen Ronghuo's house. After this thing was captured by him and Ho San Huanglin, its hands and feet had been broken, and its body had been severely injured, and it was unable to resist at all. Seeing Zhu Daipen dragging the knocker into the house, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed and he said, "Village chief, Huanglin, Ho San, Li Hai Shui, follow me in and have a look. As for everyone else, please wait outside." As he spoke, he took the first step and followed Zhu Daipen's footsteps. Several people looked at each other, not knowing what Chen Ronghuo had called him and others to do. However, they did not hesitate and followed Chen Ronghuo's footsteps. After everyone entered the house, Chen Ronghuo closed the door, blocking the view of those outside. When other people in the village saw this scene, they were a little curious and didn't know what Chen Ronghuo was going to do. But Chen Ronghuo wouldn't let them into the house, and there was nothing they could do. After entering the house, Zhu Daipen threw the knocker on the ground and shuddered, "Sir, this ghost is a bit strange. After staying around it for a long time, I feel cold and cold all over. It seems that as time goes by, I will become just like it." Huanglin also said, "That's true, I feel the same way." Chen Ronghuo nodded and did not speak, but looked up and down at the knocker. After a moment, his eyes flickered and fell on the right sleeve of the knocker. This guy was wearing a long black gown. After Chen Ronghuo looked at it for a moment, he found that the sleeve on the right side was bulging, as if something was hidden. Thinking this, he raised his head, looked at Huang Taizheng and said, "Village chief, I think there seems to be something in the right sleeve of this thing. Please help me tear open the sleeve and take a look." Naturally, Huang Taizheng would not refuse. He was now standing on the right side of the knocker. As soon as he squatted down, he stretched out his eagle-like hands and stabbed, tearing open the knocker's sleeve. As the dark sleeves were torn apart, there was a sudden pop and something fell to the ground. This thing is a completely black scroll. There are golden threads on the edge, but the threads seem to be contaminated by black, making them look a little dark. After the scroll fell to the ground, there was a trace of black energy swirling up. At the same time, everyone in the room felt an even cooler feeling than before. "What's this?" Huang Taizheng and others were startled, not recognizing this thing. Only Huanglin and Zhu Daipen felt that this scroll was somewhat similar to the 2 scrolls they had obtained in the Misty Valley before, but they were different in color and breadth. Noble Reward Scroll, a mysterious scroll passed down by the gods, which can be used to reward nobles. All noble reward scrolls can only reward the lowest baron. If you want to obtain a higher title, you can only sacrifice a large amount of faith to the gods. The baron can obtain 20% of the power of faith in the territory. All other powers of faith will belong to the gods. The viscount can obtain 30% of the power of faith, the earl can obtain 40%, and the marquis can obtain 50%. The higher the title, the more power of faith can be divided from the gods, and some other rights can also be obtained. Scroll status: it is sealed by a large number of 5th-level ghost charms. The seal must be released before it can be used. At the same time, because there is a lot of ghost energy lingering on the scroll, with the current strength of the host, The scroll can be touched at close range for up to 3 minutes a day, otherwise there is a risk of being permanently assimilated into a ghost. Note, permanent assimilation means that the ghost energy and the body are completely integrated at that time. The host will not be able to detect the ghost attribute alone. At the same time, Chen Ronghuo also looked at the dark scroll and identified its attributes. Sealed by a large amount of ghost energy, he frowned slightly. But after thinking about it, this is normal. Otherwise, after Wu Yukai used the 5th level ghost communication talisman to transform himself into a ghost, he might not be as strong as he is now. The 5th level is equivalent to the extraordinary level. As far as Chen Ronghuo knows, there are many beings of this level who are called king level experts. 3 minutes a day, I don't know how long it will take me to masturbate to remove the ghost energy seal. He shook his head a little. But soon after, his mood calmed down. Having this thing is better than not having it at all. After all, now that he has this thing, he only needs to remove its seal, and when the time is right, he can use it immediately. Moreover, even if this thing is not sealed, he cannot use it now. Now, even if Huang Tishan's injuries were cured, he would still have the subordinates of an earth warrior. In this case, if he does not become the lord, Xiahe village still has a chance to survive between the two major forces of Greenwater Bay Town and Angsha Town. But if he becomes the lord, I am afraid that he will immediately be crushed by the two forces that have been dominant nearby for many years with the force of thunder. He naturally understands the principle of accumulating food widely and becoming king slowly. With these thoughts passing through his mind, his eyes flashed and he said, "It is indeed this thing." "Sir, this is?" Zhu Deipen asked. Although his brain is not as smart as others, he seems to have an instinct. An instinct to answer when you should and never to answer when you shouldn't. Chen Ronghuo glanced at him and said, "It's normal that you don't recognize this thing. This is a scroll of noble reward, but it cannot be used temporarily because it is sealed by a large amount of ghost energy." Noble reward scroll. Everyone in the field was shocked when they heard Chen Ronghuo's words. Although Beiwu Island is only an island on the edge of the Gaduo Snake Islands, it is thousands of miles long and wide, and its area is not smaller than other islands at all. But on such a large island, there are only more than 100 Baron Lords, a dozen Viscount Lords, and one Earl-level Lord. From this, we can see how precious the scroll of noble reward is. "Congratulations, young master." At this moment, Huanglin suddenly knelt on one knee and said to Chen Ronghuo, "If you want to become a noble and develop your territory, I am willing to follow you closely." He was very smart and immediately thought of the reason why Chen Ronghuo only asked a few of them to come in. But this matter should not be publicized now, so he deliberately lowered his voice when he spoke. "So do I, Zhu Deipen." After hearing what Huanglin said, Zhu Deipen was half a beat late and quickly knelt down and said, "And I, Li Hai Shui. Ho-san is also willing to follow you." Li Hai Shui and Ho-san on the side also knelt down almost at the same time. "Your Highness, I can represent our Xiahe village and follow you to work together for the great cause." Huang Taizhung also knelt down on the right side of Chen Ronghuo with his trembling old body. 5 people, the 5 strongest people in Xiahe village. At this moment, when Chen Ronghuo did not clearly state his wishes, all expressed their attitudes to him. "You actually had the nerve to ask where my little broken bowl was, what do you think? Thanks to Moueshi for another 500 coin reward."